Next question is from Daniel. It says, I have the option to buy title insurance for myself for my new home. I am required to purchase it from my lender. It is about $1,100 for the title insurance. I heard that it's a scam and pays out at a much lower rate than any other type of insurance. Do I still need title insurance?
This is a great question. And this is one forever. I just piggybacked on somebody I look up to.
I was about to say, that's exactly
but I want to tell you, I've bought a few houses now, so I've got a little more of experience on where you can squeeze on this a little bit. Is that Clark Howard? We all know Clark Howard. Fingerprints all over me. Anybody from Atlanta, or even I know he's Clark touches. He's all over the place. But I love me some Clark Howard, and Clark Forever would be like, buy that title insurance. Now, here's what I recognized once I started buying houses, is that if you're doing a mortgage, your lender's already going to require that a title search and buying insurance is already part of the process. What your goal should now be, and you can do some research on this, is keeping them honest that they're not double dipping, charging both of you the same cost. You want to kind of find out and do a little research and even squeeze them on, since they're already having to do the title insurance for your mortgage company. Can they get a little more competitive with that piggyback policy, essentially, that's already going off the heavy lift that you're having to pay for the mortgage company, and give you that policy at a much cheaper price? Squeeze them on that. Ask and negotiate. But yes, I like title insurance just for the peace of mind, especially if you've got a mortgage. They're already doing the work anyway. See if you can get it for a very reasonable add-on fee, and then you're protected. Yes, but hopefully you'll never need to claim it, but you're at least covered on a very expensive asset.
Yeah, I think that people don't often recognize how much of the home closing process is negotiable. A lot of first-time home buyers, they just think, okay, well, I've never done this before, don't know what I'm doing. I show up and, all right, show me where to sign and where do I send the check. You can advocate for yourself, and they do the thing. And I feel like it's almost set to fail, but you go in for the closing, and I think you told me you were one of the people who, at your very first home closing, you sat there and read I think they tried to discourage you from doing that, from reading all the stuff. Make sure you educate yourself. You ought to say, okay, well, what if I go out, Daniel, and I buy this title insurance policy? What's it protecting me from? What's the risk that I could run into where I would have to utilize this policy? And is that something that actually gives me apprehension? Okay, if the answer is yes, it gives me apprehension, is it worth $1,100 to me? Or is it worth some dollar value less than that? Because it's going to come down to a little bit of your own risk tolerance, risk capacity standpoint, and you have to navigate it that way. But I think the more that you can educate yourself on the closing process, the more well prepared that you will be to go into that. And I do think this is even one of the things that, as I know there's some stuff out there about it now. Really good real estate agents can help you with some of this stuff. If they've gone through a lot of this, they can be advocates to educate you on exactly what you are signing off on and how that operates through the closing process.
Let me give a few additional tips to kind of tie into this title insurance question. Is that and this is, by the way, from my own, what I've learned. I think I'm 5 houses now between investments and then if you did closings on commercial property, I'm probably getting close to double digit closings for personal stuff. And then I've reviewed a bunch for clients. Here's some things you should know. I showed up to my first closing with a checkbook. It didn't know anything about it. My wife and I realized we were 24, 25 years old when we bought this first house. I showed up and they were like, what? They're like, no, you have to wire the money. You have to wire the money. And I was like, no, I thought I was going to just write a check. And I'm surprised they even let me get into the closing. But we somehow worked our way through it. But here's some things that I have done, being a person who's had a little more experience buying houses. You don't go to closing unless they have, and you put them on notice that you need to see all the settlement statements and you want to see how the money's going to flow out a few days before closing. You're not wiring, because they'll tell you a lot of I think a lot of times with title companies, they just give you the amount you owe, and then they expect you just to wire it. Now, I want to see how they broke it out. I want to make sure, and even before that, I'm negotiating on the title insurance and other things. But there's nothing wrong with you advocating for yourself to want to see all the numbers, make sure you agree with everything, and make sure you're on the same page. And then once you agree on everything, you be very careful with the wiring process. You will wire the money, but criminals have gotten very good, because it's not uncommon with data breaches, especially with real estate attorneys, is that they can get in and then be in an email account and then find out who closing things, and then send a bogus email with false wiring instructions. So that's why even if they email you wiring instructions and the letterhead looks good, I would go on the Google. I called it like an old man. I'd go on the internet. Go on the internet. Look up the title company from the internet. Directly Google search it, or however you find it. Call the number that's on the internet. Then talk to the person. Verify the wiring instructions. Then wire the money to make sure you're in a good place. And I think those are just some of the tips that I would do. Don't show up with a checkbook. You're going to wire the money, but you'll need to be very cautious about wiring, because a lot of times you're on the hook if you send it to a criminal. And then just make sure that you see the settlement statement so that you know where the money's going.
Congratulations on closing your first home. That's no small feat in this real estate environment.